Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Prolific Creator podcast. And today we have another good one. Like I promised last time, it was a good one, and it was a good one. But today we have another good one, so that's even better. Today's guest, I've known for what
9 years.
9 years. So it's all good. So your name?
My name is Priscilla.
Her name is Priscilla. She's been we used to work together for years.
Back in the dark days.
Back in the dark days. I'm still in the dark ages, but whatever.
Some of us have found the light.
And you're like, if people listen to the name Prolific Creator, people would think, it's people creating stuff, and like photographers, artists, musicians. You're none of that.
You are correct. You are correct.
But that's why I like to say that the Prolific Creator is really more about people creating their own path, because you actually managed to go from, having dropped out of high school, correct?
Yep. To
getting recently your master's degree.
Yep.
So that's what I wanted to talk about, because to me, it's an inspiring story. And, I'm obviously, I know you're not the first or the only one to ever do this,
sure,
but it's something that you don't really listen to about very often. And I think a lot of people out there probably once they get out of high school, they probably think it's kind of impossible to go back and sure, redo things. So let's talk about that. So let's go all the way to the beginning. Like, you were...
The beginning, 1983.
The very beginning. You were born and raised in...
predominantly in the Midwest. I was born in Texas, San Antonio specifically, but moved to the Midwest very young. I was toddler age, so...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you never went to school in Texas? Or...
Nope, never went to school in Texas.
Okay, so
although
you were lucky.
My mom was a bus driver, and she was, back in those times, you could like bring your kids to basically any job you had. So,
back in the day, it was like, bring your kid to work.
No rules, no car seats, that kind of thing.
You make him work too, or whatever. Yeah.
So, but no, I never actually went to school there. I think I was just right around 3 or 4 when we actually located back to the Midwest, or to the Midwest, I should say. So,
okay. Do you ever go back to Texas, like to live?
Yeah.
Or?
Well, not to live, but I visit frequently. So my mom and my dad are divorced, but my mom got remarried when I was about in junior high, and not too long after she got married, they moved to Texas. So I have a sister. We're 6 years apart, and I have a brother, and we are 13 years apart. So they both pretty much kind of grew up in their later half in Texas. Okay. So I go often because I have a ton of family there, both from my dad's side and my mom's side, just,
But it's better over here, right?
Oh, 100%. I can't even walk down the grocery store aisles without getting a look like, what is her problem? We move at a very different pace in everything, whether it's the way we talk, the way we walk. So I definitely, as much as I enjoy Texas, and I've even said I would love to retire somewhere over there.
Yeah, somewhere warm.
Yeah, exactly.
Begin with.
Right. But for right now, and to live right now, it's not ideal.
Okay. So school. So you basically went to school all the time. It was in the Illinois area?
Yeah. So I pretty much just grew up in Palatine. That's kind of the start, like my parents' divorce and my mom remarrying is kind of what kicked off the start of why I didn't finish high school, essentially. So there was just some transition. Divorce is a hard thing for everybody involved.
Correct.
Especially kids. And it was just a difficult situation. I had an option to stay with my dad or go with my mom, so I chose the latter. So I did... In my freshman year, ideally, I was supposed to go to Palatine High School, but because of the move, my mom kind of put her foot down and said, well, your dad lives in Wheeling, so if you're going to stay, you got to go to Wheeling High School. Palatine would have only been an option still if I was able to live with my grandparents. And I think at the time, my mom was just trying to get me to realize that, hey, I'm the boss and this is how it's going to go. So some of my choices in dropping out of high school, the one thing I want to say is you never, as a high school dropout, think that it's going to be something that your family supports.
Correct, yeah.
And I don't want to say that anybody in my family supported it, but it was very much especially, being Latina, I think part of our culture, it's okay, you either work or you go to school. So at the moment that you choose to pick the harder route, you pretty much, that's it. You're pretty much set and people don't like it, but that's your option and that's the way you're going to go. So when I did that, again, it wasn't supported by my family, but I immediately got a job and, that pretty much just started it.
Now, were you one of those kids that hated school, or you actually liked it? Or?
I love school, but so because my mom put her foot down and said, okay, you got to live with your dad and do that. And I loved my dad. There was nothing wrong with it, but I didn't grow up in Wheeling. I didn't really, know too many people. I knew some only because before my parents got divorced, we lived in Mount Prospect and, that's a neighboring suburb. So, I knew some people, but these were people I hadn't seen since like first and second grade, so, okay. I had a very horrible freshman year experience. It was not like I missed all of my friends. I didn't get to start school with all of the people that I knew. So it wasn't like I was bullied or anything. I just, it was just bad. High school, you want to picture it.
It's a huge change.
Yeah, exactly. On top of the fact that now, I'm living with my dad and, that was a whole new experience in itself because, divorce, you're pretty much a weekend kind of dad, and that's not anybody's fault. That's just part of the circumstance, so that was a whole nother dynamic to get used to. So I was just basically miserable and I was like, I can't do this for another year. So I actually did and was able to go back to Palatine for my sophomore year. And I got there and I realized, wow, like this is just not what I thought it was going to be. Like I had my friends, but it was just, I already felt out of place because I had kind of just not really engaged in my freshman year. So before where I really enjoyed school and it was like just something you never thought that you didn't finish, I was starting to kind of think of school as something as more of an option versus an obligation. Okay. So I chose mid-year just to be like, okay, I'm just going to stop and I'm going to find a job and that's really it. And, I say, unfortunately, I was able to get a job only because it's pretty much what kept me out of not going back to school right away. Having the access to somebody hiring, somebody who should be in high school full time to work full time kind of only enabled me in essence because
like, why should I go back?
Exactly.
I'm doing okay.
Right. Like I'm 16 years old and I'm making money and enough money to support me living on my own. Now, not 100% on my own because I like myself, as you said, Javi, there's other people who have gone through my experience. So oddly enough, where I started working at telemarketing. So there was a lot of other, people my age, a little bit older, but not too much older. And I stumbled across some friends who are now still my best friends. I've known them for 16 plus years and, we've grown up together, but they had very similar stories where they dropped out of high school and they were working for full time and they found that job and we kind of found each other. So through that, we all came together and I lived with them for pretty much between the age of 16 all the way up until I was about 24. So, part of that experience was, again, having access to adult life type resources kind of enabled me and held me back in certain areas. Now, on the flip side of that, because I had to work and I had to support myself, I understood at a very young age survival, essentially, because Correct. Just because I was able to afford rent, a third of rent, doesn't mean I was able to afford, food all the time. And, and this is where I will say where my situation is a little bit different is I still had a very supportive family. Again, they might not have always supported the decisions I made, but me in a whole, they did support. And so there was many weekends where me and my best friends were, going to one person's mom's house to get fed or to do laundry or, whatever.
Oh yeah, we're just visiting.
Right. We miss you so much.
At dinner time.
But, and they knew, but again, they're your family and they worry about you and they're going to, do what they can to support you. So that was really kind of the start though of why, I chose to drop out of high school. It wasn't a good reason. I don't never know. And I believe to this day, even knowing other people's stories who had it way worse than I did, I don't really know that there's ever a good reason to, but it happens, and you got to figure out.
At such a young age, like you said, you find a way of being more adult. You're probably looking already to try and have more independence, and they give you a job, and it's like, I'll take that. Then.
Yeah, for sure.
And like you mentioned, divorce. Like my parents were divorced, but at least it happened right after I finished high school. Mm-hmm. So I was able to graduate. But in my case, I had started going to college, and then the divorce happened, and it was a little bit of a different situation because I had to work.
Sure.
Like all of a sudden, it wasn't an option anymore. Like we needed to pay rent.
Yeah.
But yeah, like once you start working, then you get into that mentality of, well, I'm already working, like exactly. I'm doing okay.
Yeah, right. Like I'm surviving just like everybody else in the world,
right.
Everybody else around me. So it just became very easy to stay exactly where I was at and doing what I was doing, because I didn't actually go back to get my GED until I was just about 19, almost turning 20.
So what encourage you eventually to go back and get your GED?
Well, part of it, again, it comes back to my family and even my best friends who were in the similar situation. Like, we didn't come from families that, didn't finish high school, essentially, that we weren't like the first of our generation to, graduate high school had we stayed in high school. We had good examples around us. So we knew deep down inside of us just those values that was important. And we did, the one thing in common, or that we all have in common even still now, I think, is just our want to succeed and make the best for ourselves and our families, because all of us have families now. So, we knew deep down, did we want to be telemarketers, into our 30s? Absolutely not. It was a horrible job. But so that pretty much kind of prompted it, and just knowing that wasn't going to be our life forever, and we didn't want it to be. Is really what got us going. Because again, that wasn't something that I did on my own. I did that with them. Me and one of my best friends out of the four went, and we applied it. And funny enough is I didn't even go the first date that I had scheduled, because with your GED, you have to schedule dates to go and test. Mm-hmm. And I blew off the first one. And then I went to the second one, and I failed it by like 4 points in math. Okay. And then I finally went the third time, and I got it. And kind of similar with my one best friend that went with me, except she did it in 2. Hopefully she's hearing this and she'll take the shout out. But, so even that was not something that just I did seamlessly. There was some bumps in the roads to do that. And again, it's because you're so young and you're faced with this task of huge responsibility. So it's like, oh, okay, go or don't go. Oh, there'll be tomorrow. And it was always so easy just to pick, I can do this tomorrow.
Now, the actual GED, you didn't like go to classes or anything? You just went and you took the test?
Yeah, we just went and took the test. And part of our rationale in that is, as silly as I would not recommend that, is what I could say, because there is a reason I had to go back twice at least, right? The first one was me, but
I remember with one of my nephews, he was trying to get a GED, and we went to a college, and they basically gave us this whole thing so that he could go and take some classes, so eventually get to a GED. Yeah. So when you mentioned the first time you failed, I was like, wait, how do you fail an entrance? But then it clicked that, oh no, it must have been the actual GED.
Yeah, and rules may have changed. I don't know if they allow that anymore, to be honest with you, but at that time they did. And our thought process was, we haven't really been out of school too long, so what really could have, changed?
What could have changed?
And you have to provide, still transcripts for where you left off in high school, so a lot of some of the requirements you've already met, so that was helpful. But yeah, so once we completed that, actually, it took me a couple years, but then I got the energy of like, okay, I did this. This is great. Now I can actually list on job applications that I have a high school equivalency, if nothing else, right? So that energy stays with you. It's exciting, and you want to keep going. So a couple years later after that, well, I guess a few years later after that, because I was about 23 going on 24, I applied to DeVry and got in, because I said, okay, I want to go ahead and work on the next stage. Like, I know I want to be a college graduate, so let me stay focused and start getting on that. I didn't have any children. I was, young, single, living in the city with my friends, working and coming off the high of this, okay, I did that first accomplishment, right? So applied at DeVry, for night school. So went to school part-time, worked full-time, and it was a great experience. And then I dropped out. So I was kind of just continuing to repeat history a little bit.
Were you studying anything specific at the
project management? Yeah. Okay. So, I actually ended up starting a family. So at that point, it was like, okay, well, now I can't really...
like it was an accident. So by mistake, I ended up making a family.
Surprise! But I mean, at that moment, it was like, how does anybody manage like a family in school? It was just super hard to fathom. And this is because in going to night school at DeVry, I met a lot of great people who had that kind of story, single moms, some single dads even, and even kids who were, or young adults who are my age who were basically having to work during the day because they were the sole providers for their families, like their parents couldn't work and they were working to support their siblings and their parents and still trying to go to school to make it. And, here I didn't really have any of that. And then I got pregnant essentially with my son. And it was just like, wow, I don't know how some people get through this. It just seemed too challenging at the time. So I did drop out. But again, up until that point, I had made, a lot of good connections. I will say part of the positive that I took away from having to start so early in the workforce was it kind of gave me the tools to know how to be in the workforce, if that makes sense. Just etiquette of business, essentially. So I was fortunate enough to make some good connections and get like good, entry office jobs and things of that sort. I can't say that my story involves me working at McDonald's or, anything along that. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but, a lot of times people get that preconceived notion, like high school dropouts are going to work at fast food places. And that kind of goes back to why I'm telling you, I was fortunate enough to find a job that paid me to be able to support myself. So it was an enabler because I'm sure had I worked in a fast food restaurant or something along those lines, there was a lot of things that I did and had freedom to do that I wouldn't have been able to do if I did have to work in retail or the service industry. So again, I had a fairly good job, had a family on the way. So it didn't seem like the right time at that point. So by this time now, I'm in my early 20s though. So I'm thinking a little bit more along the lines of an adult and, my priorities are set a little bit more straight, at least in my head at the time. So I took some time off and it wasn't until I want to say maybe about 3 years later that I was having a conversation with my best friends again. And we just knew, again, we wanted more, now that we were all having children. We didn't want it just to be where we didn't accomplish that goal of completing college and finishing school and kind of being able to do all those things that we wanted to do associated with our own education. And just knowing that now we were going to be examples for others. So that pushed me to go ahead and enroll in online classes for my bachelor's, University of Phoenix. Woohoo, shout out. And so that one I stuck to. And I ended up, it took me about 4.5 years because for part of that time I did it part-time. I wasn't doing school full-time and working full-time at first. But then once you commit to something like that and you stay in the grind of it, you kind of just can't wait to finish. So then that's what pushed me into full time. And then ultimately I was able to complete that in about 4.5 years. But
now at this point you had your second child.
Yes. Yeah.
So how was that managing the job plus the 2 children? Plus the... Yeah,
I mean, it's not easy. I will say that. And again, I know I'm definitely not the first person to do it. I'm thankful to say that I'm not going to be the last person because it's so important. But it's not easy. You basically have 2 full-time jobs, and in between that time, then I became a single mom. So, it was 100% of the time that I was responsible for 2 other people and myself and supporting us. And then also working to accomplish this goal that I knew that I needed to finish. There just wasn't an option at that point. But I did. I'm thankful to say that I stuck with it. I was able to do that. And then again, you come off that high and that energy of just accomplishment and you don't want to stop. I just didn't see at that point a reason for me to stop. I realized if I was actually able to do it like all those people that I saw doing it when I first applied at DeVry, there was no reason I couldn't keep going. So, I had other, aspirations in terms of my career goals. And I knew in the corporate world that I've been part of now for so many years that I needed that, whether or not it means anything, you just need it. It's a piece of paper essentially that kind of tells everybody your value, if you will. But a lot of people still depend on that and count on that, and specifically look for those things, especially when you're applying for certain things. So, it just kept me going.
Yeah. When I was when I have looked for other jobs, I never went to never ended up going to college, never bothered with that. But indeed, when you're trying to look for other jobs, even when I went to Puerto Rico, I was like, well, I've had like almost 10 years of experience as a business process analyst. That should count for something.
Right.
But no, so many places, they're like, oh, you must have a bachelor's. And then they won't even look at your resume.
Right.
If it doesn't say that you have that. And I'm like, why? Like, I know everything I need.
Right. Quiz me.
Quiz me. Like, let me work for free for a week and show you what I can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy to a point how important that is. Now, do you think you would have been able to do this without the online?
No, absolutely not. So, I mean, that is another big, positive essentially in terms of like where we've come with technology, if you will, because I mean, I don't know how people prior to the age of online schooling really managed going to school at night, like physically going into a classroom.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine that I see a lot of these, type of news things like on Facebook where they're showing like great college professors that are like actually like holding their students' babies so their student can test and things like that, and which I think is amazing and it's great. But I would have to imagine that there were so many people like that in the 80s and professors like that in the 80s and the 90s, because I mean, you didn't have the ability to jump on a computer or jump on your laptop and get work, schoolwork done essentially. So, or get your full on degree. So, I mean, I'm super fortunate to have had that. Access.
As far as I know, also colleges don't usually have a daycare inside.
Exactly. Yeah. So just
which they should.
Yes, and for free, mind you. But I was super fortunate in that way because, especially being a single mom, I would not have had the financial means to be able to find a sitter for my children in the evenings, essentially, because you're spending another good 4 to 5 hours after your full-time job, just working through some of the school stuff. So to have driven to a campus and committed to classroom time, I don't think I would have ever been able to.
Now, for anybody out there that might be thinking about doing this, and they're probably like, no, it's probably too expensive. It's probably too much work. Like, how does somebody even start?
Yeah.
To go on that route?
Sure. I mean, I will not sit here and tell you it is not expensive, because it is. Your initial out of pocket expenses, I will tell you, was easier to navigate than I thought it would be. I had very few times where I had out of pocket expenses. A lot of these online schools, number one, they have really good, at least in my experience, had really good resources with their financial aid departments and setting you up and finding the right resources in terms of applying for financial aid, which I did throughout my entire academic career, but also kind of exposing you to things like grants and free money that you don't have to pay back, and essentially to be able to afford books and things of that sort. And everybody falls into a little bit of a different bracket, so if you work full time or you don't work full time, or, you're fresh out of high school, but you're choosing the online route, there's so many things. The biggest thing I think is actually utilizing the financial aid, resources that all of these schools have, because that's really what they're there for. And I feel like if I had to go through the experience where I got a financial advisor assigned to me and just felt like, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what FAFSA means. I don't know how to apply for this.
Correct.
And I just felt a little defeated. So, I mean, might sound really simple, but all I did was request a new one. And I feel like you have to just, if you don't get answers or you're feeling frustrated because you're still left with all these questions on what's the next step, just ask for another advisor, because I guarantee you there are good ones that will literally, if you will, hold your hand through the entire process. And that's really what you need, is you need somebody who can tell you this is where you go and this is what you need to provide, or this is how you should apply. This is when it needs to be done by. And without those experts, it would have been really hard for me to figure out what I needed to do and how I needed to do it. But again, it is expensive, and I have a lot of student loans right now that I'm paying back. But at the end of the day, I've also seen what having my degree has done for me. You know, I've been able to excel in my career in a way that I didn't think was going to be possible, but I know has a lot to do, not just with how I work and my work ethic and my experience, but because I can simply say, here, I have this proof that I went through all this hours of education. So, you know, I'm valuable in that sense.
Now, something that I didn't even know before, because you always hear of like student debt and whatnot, but and maybe this is something that most people know, and I didn't know that you don't actually have to pay student debt until you finish.
Correct. Yeah. So you, I forget the actual term now because it's been a little bit since I've been done, but you basically have a 6-month period where you don't have to pay your loans back right away. And that essentially is done to help you, okay, now you got this degree, go out and find good work so you can pay us back.
Which in your case, you were able to move on up and make more money. So, you know, it's for them, but
right, exactly.
Eventually, one day it'll be your money.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Right. Hoping, still crossing my fingers. You know, but the other thing is also like if you were to go from going to school to get an associate's and then to a bachelor's or a bachelor's into a master's, during that time of which you're enrolled in school, if you have open student loans, you also don't have to pay on them. So that was helpful. And that was helpful in the sense of also kind of pushing me towards continuing on after the bachelor's, because I was like, okay, how can I defer my payments a little bit longer? And it was like, oh, okay, well, I'm getting my, you know, master's taken care of. I don't have to pay. So sure, you're adding on more debt, but you know, you think about that after.
Now, you have mentioned University of Phoenix. Mm-hmm. It's where you did your bachelor's, but then you use a different one for your master's.
Yeah,
right?
So I did Southern New Hampshire University. Nothing against University of Phoenix. I had a good experience with them. And the platforms on how online schools run seems to be very similar across the board, just in talking with others who have done it also. But what motivated me was just the programs that the schools offered. They were a little bit different. So, you know, my bachelor's is with a concentration in project management, and my master's is in operations and supply chain management, which has historically been my background. So University of Phoenix just didn't have something as specific and tailored to that specific, you know, topic. So that's what prompted me to go with another school at that point. But I had a good experience with both. And if I did have to do it all over again, ideally, I would have graduated high school and probably gone to traditional college. But having the options that I did have still warranted me really positive results.
So basically, for anybody that might be thinking about this, that might be thinking it's too difficult, so really all you really do is just go to the website, fill out the form.
Yeah, I mean,
they basically called you up, right, and start talking to an advisor right away.
Yeah, so I mean, once you decide that online schooling is what you want to do, you kind of just have to Google all the different school options that you have, because there's a ton out there. So I will say you do have to be a little bit careful. I would look at, you know, what schools are accredited and things of that sort. And they'll tell you they have to post this information on their website. So it's not hidden. It's very easy to find. But then also figure out what it is that you're specifically wanting to go to school for. Because not all schools offer the same. I can tell you that. What I will say, though, too, in terms of the financial side, is now a lot of community colleges are offering online resources as well, and classrooms as well. So at any level now, whether it's an associate's, a bachelor's, or a master's, you have these options for you. So it's really good. But once you pick exactly what school you think is going to be good for you, you go through the application process, and you know they have links on their websites that you can, you know, in order for you to access this application, you can call. And then the minute that you apply, you know, it tells you, okay, we've got your application, you know, that sit and wait kind of time period, not very long though. And then you are contacted, and you're basically contacted by, not a finance person, but like your initial welcome partner that will work with you to kind of get you set up and let you know if you are accepted. I don't really know the legalities or what's involved in who they accept and who they don't, to be honest with you. But once you're accepted, they basically tell you next steps, which is getting you with the financial advisor so you can start working on things like FAFSA and financial aid, and which is kind of one and the same. But in terms of just getting you set up so that way you can get those applications filled out and get funds essentially to start.
Now, what is your opinion on expenses? Like how
much it costs?
Yeah, the current cost of education.
I think it's crazy. I mean, especially having a family, you know, my kids are still a little bit young, but the reality is I will still be paying on my student loans once my kids are going into college, which is a very scary thought because, you know, as a parent, you want to be able to say, okay, I'm going to be able to help my children with so much, you know? And the reality is I will still also have my own school loans. So I wish in that sense that we've looked at education in a very different way. It almost feels that here, especially in the United States, that it's looked at as something that is a privilege. It's not something that, you know, we should all have access to. But if you do, you're super privileged. And don't get me wrong, we are privileged to have these resources. But at the same time, it shouldn't be at the cost of our, you know, whole financial stability, if you will.
Especially when again, it is something that so many jobs they require.
Right.
Like you have to have a bachelor's degree nowadays if you want to do anything other than working at a factory.
Right. Exactly.
And soon they'll probably ask for an associate's for that too. But So yeah, for me it's kind of crazy, like how much it costs, and again the fact that it is required. And the thing that I find weird, like again when I was in Puerto Rico looking for a job, and they just say like bachelor's degree. Like, it doesn't even seem to matter what on.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
no,
you just got to have a degree.
Yeah. I mean, when you know, in all of the jobs that I've had, it's funny, you know, you get to, you know, new people get on board. And I think part of, you know, the cultures in a lot of places is, you know, they introduce the person and their background and where they went to school and things of that sort. And, you know, some of these people, you're like, okay, they're hired for what? And they went to school for what? Like, it just doesn't make sense. But it just goes to show that how much value, you know, the corporate world actually puts on having this piece of paper and showing that you have education, basically.
And for someone like me, so many times I would be working with somebody that had a degree, that had a better job than me because they had a degree.
And in nothing that they're doing today.
No, in nothing that they're doing today, and they don't seem to know anything either.
Right.
So it's a little upsetting.
Yeah, and I would imagine so. And I think that's, you know, that is part of why it was, I realized very early on, starting with office jobs and things of that sort, in recognizing that it would be very difficult for me to get past being a receptionist or, you know, a telemarketer without having that degree or any degree really.
Yeah.
And that was a big motivating factor in actually pursuing it as well.
Then there's also the fact that you're paying for so many classes that you don't really need.
Yes. Yes. But, you know, it's funny. You see those memes like in high school where they're like, oh, thanks for teaching me about parallelograms versus how to do taxes. You know, I mean, it's funny, but because it's so true, you know.
Correct.
You wonder how these lessons are built and who actually feels like some of this information is valid, especially when you are, you know, working on a specific major in a, you know, concentrated area. You start to wonder, you know, again, why does geometry help me figure out supply chain? Not exactly sure.
I took trigonometry, like I passed, but
sure.
Like I don't use any of that.
Right.
I barely use basic math. Like
I get it. Yeah.
2 + 2 is yellow. Everybody.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, it's one of those things that, like you mentioned, I feel like we spend so much time, even in high school, teaching kids stuff that doesn't really prepare them for
Sure.
For the real world. You know, it doesn't prepare them for filing taxes. It doesn't prepare them. They don't even prepare them that much for going to college. Like when I started going to college, it was because people did everything for me.
Yeah.
Like I just had to go show up.
Right. Right.
And then once I quit, I like, I actually went to MATC in Milwaukee for like a whole semester. I never got an ID because I didn't even know where to go get an ID. And I felt stupid
asking.
So I just kept going and never got an ID.
They accepted you still.
But you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely feel like the whole education system currently in this country could use a remake, because not only that, you're also teaching every kid the same way.
Sure.
Which works for some people. Not quite all of them. Right. However, now you have your master's, you get a new promotion.
I did.
Recently.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
Yeah, everything is good.
Except that fact that you'll be paying forever.
Right. Yeah, I'll be paying forever. But I mean, hey, at least I can say I made it this far, right?
Do you think that, you know, when I was growing up, the mentality was always like, oh, you finish high school, then you go to college. Like that's just the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Do you feel that should be the way? Like,
no, I mean, I feel like, you know, I come from a family where there's a lot of people who are part of different trades, you know, so I don't necessarily think it has to be college for you to say you're going to be successful at something. I think there are even, you know, self-made millionaires and billionaires that don't have any, you know, college background, and some of them I know don't even really have finished high school. So there are people who have been successful without this. And again, I think things like trades are a great thing and a great avenue, because not everybody wants to be in an office or, you know, you know, work in the corporate world. So I definitely don't think that it is the only way. I think it was just important for me specifically in terms of where I wanted to be and the industry of which I knew I was going to serve. But I mean, anything that you can get into that's going to benefit you and excel you for the better of your own good, I think is beneficial. I'm
also thinking, like we mentioned, it's extremely expensive, and I'm willing to bet that there's a lot of people out there that have gotten themselves in huge debt trying to follow a path that's not even really what they want.
Right. Yeah.
like they start going to college because they're told, oh, you have to go to college.
Right.
And you know, like I was studying computerized electronics technology. Extremely boring stuff for me, but I was told, oh, you should study this because that'll get you a lot of money. Right. Well, yeah, but I was in it, I'm like, okay, I don't really care about this.
Right.
Like,
you're
why
not engaged.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
So yeah, I personally believe that you know, it probably even helps to take a year after high school or maybe longer. Yeah. Like make sure figure out what you really want to do is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, definitely.
Before you go spending so much money, because you're just going to get yourself into more debt, and I absolutely hate that. Right.
I will say, you know, on the financial side also is if you have the opportunity to use resources like, you know, financial aids through your employer, because I know that a lot of employers offer that. That's another big thing that did help me as well. I was able to get some reimbursement, you know, for education through some of the employers that I have been with over the years. So that was very helpful as well. And I know a lot of programs now also are helping the parents who have kids entering into college, where they can apply for, you know, grants and things like that for their children, just for them being an employee there. So there are avenues, but it's still not going to be cheap. But I 100% agree that college is not the only avenue that you have to take to be successful. But I would say just weigh your options, like you said, and make sure that it's specifically what you're wanting to do.
Awesome. So, plans for the future. Are you going to go for a doctorate next? Or?
No.
You're like, no, I'm done with this.
No. Like I said, I'm done with school. I have no desire to have like a double bachelor's or a double master's in anything. When at the end of my, master's program, I was so excited to be done with school. Like, to not have to worry about homework. I mean, because when you do this online, you literally have to schedule your life around work and school, because a lot of your school time is also done on the weekends. Like, I did some stuff during my work hours. I'm not going to say that I didn't. But
really? I didn't know this.
Right. Having worked with me for 8 years, right? So, but I mean, some of that you had no choice but to do work on a weekend. And that's usually your family time or your personal time, your friend time. So, it's difficult. But I have no intention on doing any more schooling. Now it's just focusing on, the things for my family. My kids are growing. They're, about to be 11 and 10. So they're starting to create their own personal lives. And of course, that means I'm going to become a chauffeur full time. So I'm just focusing on my family, my friend time, my personal time when I do have it. Things like running a marathon that's coming up.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. How did you end up running a marathon now? Like, you just decided, I need a new challenge? Like, is that it? Or,
well, no, not so much.
Or were you just like, I really hate myself. How can I punish me?
Right. How can I punish myself? So I got into running a few years back with another mutual friend that you and I share. And she was a runner, and, it was really inspiring to see that she was a mom and had kids and was, running and doing all these great things. And, it's kind of like a tattoo, how they say once you have one tattoo, it's like, you want another. And once you run like a 5K, it's like, I can do another 5K, and the medals are cool and free t-shirts are nice. And even though they're not really free, because, you pay to do all these things, but you kind of get that bug and that energy. So I've been doing it now for a little while. 1 year I didn't do any running, and then started back up again.
You've been doing 5Ks, right?
5Ks. I've done some 10Ks, never done a half marathon. And then I just said, okay, Chicago Marathon, let's do it, right? Really what it was motivated by, though, is this year, the Chicago Marathon is supporting Parkinson's disease, which is really near and dear to my heart and my family's heart, because my grandmother currently has Parkinson's and dementia. So anything that is involved around supporting awareness and financial aid for that cause, I want to be a part of. And so when I was just doing some searches for some runs in Chicago, not even with the intent of it being a marathon, just runs, the Chicago Marathon pops up, and lo and behold, it's supporting Parkinson's. So I knew I wanted to be part of that. I actually missed the initial registration for general registry, if you will, into it. But my one runner friend, she let me know that there are charities who take so many positions within these marathons in order to get others to still be able to participate. So Michael J. Fox's foundation was one of those. And I reached out, I applied, they had an opening, and lo and behold, here I am registered for the Chicago Marathon.
Which is when?
In October 13th of this year, 2019.
Awesome. So now you are going to be asking for donations, right?
Yes.
Like that's the next part.
Yeah,
right?
That's the next part. I don't like to talk about it so much. I joke with people that I don't let my daughter do Girl Scouts. It seems like an amazing program. I'm not knocking it. I have nothing against it except for the fact that you actually have to be a salesman at the age of like 5 and 6. So I'm not a big fan of that. But again, this is a cause that is very, very worthy to me. So I see why people do fundraising, and I know that it has its benefits. So as uncomfortable as it makes me, yes, I will be fundraising for this event.
All right. So we are actually going to have a link on the website, prolificcreator.com, on the page for this episode, so that people can go and donate if they feel like doing that.
Great.
Just to be nice.
Thank you.
Because it is a good cause. I'm sure every cause that they do, it's it's a good cause,
yes.
But
this one just means something a little extra. Again, it's very near and dear to my heart, my family's heart. So again, any opportunity, I know I'm not the only one in my family that, if there's something that they can do to support the cause aside of just supporting our own family member that suffers from Parkinson's, we're all for it. So I do appreciate anybody that does this, not even if they donate to help me, but just donate to help the cause in general through any avenue is really great and appreciated.
Cool. So was there anybody that you would like to shout out that really helped you through through all this?
I mean, I would just generally say that every, family member that I have was really part of that. And I include my best friends as my family. I've known them for, again, 16 plus years, 3 of them specifically. And I mean, we are our own motivators in a certain way, and we live together and we know everything about each other, and we are really, when one succeeds, we all succeed. And we've always kind of had that mentality, and I think that's why we've always pushed each other. So I would say if there was any specific ones, those would be it. But in general, in whole, I mean, I would not have been able to do what I've been able to do without the support of my family, and additional friends. I mean, I can't tell you how many times even you, Javi, had helped me with a homework assignment. So that term, it takes a village, like that applies all through somebody's life. I don't think that just applies when you're talking about taking care of a small child. Like, it takes a village to get through life. Really, it does. And I'm just that fortunate that I actually, do have.
And that kind of is another good point. Like, don't try to do this alone.
Exactly.
Like if you have people, use them.
Yes, exactly. And
sounds bad, but
and we mean use them in the most productive positive way possible. I'm not talking about like even monetary. I just mean the support of being like, even hearing like, hey, that's awesome that you're doing this. That's a form of support, because it just, you think of that and you hold on to that when you're struggling on a day where it's 10 o'clock at night and all you want to do is go to bed, but you have an assignment due at like 11:59 p.m. So it's it really does take everybody in your circle essentially to kind of get through that. So, and even if your circle is not family, don't think that that's still not support and important, because family can be all shapes and sizes, and
like even at work, you if you're working, you probably know people that are really good at specific things, so use those resources.
Exactly.
Be like, hey,
I mean, again, my coworkers that I had throughout the process, I mean, the ones that I was close to always were very, very supportive and checking in, and again, there to help me when I had questions, or needed help in certain areas. So I definitely wouldn't have been able to get through it without almost every single person that it was in my life.
All right, so we are at the end of this podcast, but we're at the point where I get to ask you some for fun questions.
Oh, okay.
These are just for fun. There's no right answer.
Oh, okay.
They're silly questions, because that's how I like to finish my my podcast.
Fair enough.
So let's go with the first one. If you could be a regular cast member of any TV show, what would it be?
Vanderpump Rules and Real Housewives.
Okay. That was really fast.
Yes.
And I want to ask why. But, also, how would your character improve the show?
Oh, okay. Well, why? Because I love reality TV. It's like a guilty pleasure. Shout out to the Bravo Network. If anybody from that network is listening, it's just, reality TV is great because you really get to just sit back and be like, wow, like people actually live like this, how I would make it better. I feel like, so because I've watched reality TV, I feel like, and I know reality TV is supposed to be real, but I feel like I would be like the best character for reality TV because I've seen so many other people just live their lives. So I would have, I would be able to adapt, I think, very well to the different.
See, I've never watched a whole lot of reality TV, although I do. I watch different reality TV. I watch stuff like The Kitchen Nightmares or The Prophet,
sure,
stuff like that. Or even Marie Kondo's.
Oh yeah, I've watched that. Yeah.
But back in the day, I used to be like really into The Real World when it first came out on MTV.
Yeah, I was too.
And I would always think like, I wonder what I would be like in the real world. I would probably be the most boring character because I would be the one that's okay with whatever,
Right, because you don't want to be the one that causes trouble.
Yeah, I'll be
starts the fights.
Like, did you eat that? All right, cool. Was just wondering,
Right, exactly. No, yeah, there is some of that. I do get it because it's hard to think like, can people really be that exciting, right? But I think that's where it comes into play, where it's like, yes, it's reality TV, but I would imagine that some of the scenarios, like, I mean,
oh yeah, some has to be.
Yeah, they have to put you in certain scenarios in order to create a reaction, right? That you wouldn't normally be in. So I'd like to think that.
Plus, I'm assuming whenever they're picking people, they're just looking for the most mentally unstable.
Yes, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes you would think that, but.
Yeah. Well, my answer to this question, I put down, because I like to answer them too. I put down Doctor Who. So, because I would be the one companion that actually does what they're told.
Oh.
Because every time there's a companion on Doctor Who, he's like, oh, stay here. And they never do.
Right.
I'll be like, oh, you want me to stay here? Okay, cool. I'll just stay here.
Well, you see why reality TV is so good. The scripted stuff. It's like you know what to expect. Reality TV, there's a sense of mystery and, ooh, what will they do?
All right, next question. What do you wish your phone could do? Now, this is, keeping it somewhat realistic because, we're not going to have the phone work as an ATM or
smell-o-vision for the phone. Like how you get snaps sometimes from your friends or
you
Instagram.
Specify for the phone as if we actually had it for anything else.
I know, right?
Not for the TV, for the phone.
Right, for my phone. Well, because I don't know, because I've heard the term smell-o-vision before, right? Yeah. But I've never heard it related to the phone, so I don't know what to call it. That's why I had to specify.
Smell-o-phone.
Smell-o-phone? Yeah, I don't know. Just the ability to, when you send video of whatever you're cooking, that people could actually smell it,
all those pictures of food on Instagram.
Yes, great. The cheese is pooling 3 feet from the pizza, but how does it smell? How do the fries next to the pizza smell? Just all that. Or when you're grilling, because, I come from a big grilling family. My son loves to grill and I love to grill. And when I'm taking pictures of the carne asada on the grill, I just wish I could share that smell of the
charcoal.
Can
smell it from memory, but.
Right. But it's so different from when it's actually in front of you. So yeah, that would be mine.
Okay. It depends too, because on some of those Kitchen Nightmare episodes, I wouldn't want. So it has to be a feature I can turn off.
Turn off, right? Well, can you imagine? I know with my group of friends, at least, I'd probably be getting fart smell-o-visions,
Correct.
They'll be in the morning wake up and it's and then you smell it. But I mean, hey, you pick and choose your battles, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. It will have to be able to turn off. Me, I'm going with go a full week without having to recharge.
Oh, so recharge yourself? Or?
No, the phone.
Oh yeah, okay.
Because I hate having to charge my phone every night. So it would be nice to be able to go a whole week without having to do that. Okay. So last question. If you could only keep one fast food restaurant alive, which one would it be?
Oh, wow. That's hard. And, it's funny because I don't really eat fast food during the week. And I try not to do it during the weekend. But, man, ooh, gosh. I would like to say something like a Little Caesars because I love pizza, but Little Caesars doesn't sell fries. And you cannot have pizza without fries, okay, guys?
You can. It's totally okay.
Whoever doesn't eat it that way, you should not trust them. I'm just throwing that out there. So I would have to say maybe, I don't know. Oh, that's really tricky.
Okay, I'll let you think about it, and I'll give my answer while you have a moment to think.
Fair, that's fair.
So my answer is I want to say Wendy's. Just because they have really good burgers.
Okay.
However, I'm gonna go with Culver's. Oh. Just because they do have better fries and they sell ice cream, so it's more of a variety.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Culver's burgers, but I can eat them.
Yeah. I feel you.
It's not an issue.
Right.
They also have fish, which I really enjoy.
That didn't help me decide any bit. I'm really sorry, but it's a difficult question because, we've had this conversation with other friends in terms of Burger King Whoppers are amazing, but McDonald's fresh fries are where it's at. And then even the Coke from McDonald's is better than any of the fast food chains. But sometimes you just want a slider from White Castle. So, Javi, I'm just going to plead the fifth on that. I just cannot answer that.
You'll probably just make a brand new franchise and
have a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. That I could live
White Castle burgers, Whoppers,
McDonald's fries all the time.
Fresh all the time.
Their Coke dispensing machine.
Their Coke dispensing.
Wendy's Frosties.
Okay.
And even their single burgers. I mean, because those are good.
Can we add the cheese curds from Culver's?
Sure. I think I've only maybe had them once, but anything with cheese I'm willing to add to the menu. So let's do it.
Oh, Culver's also has cheese fries.
Oh my God. Portillo's. You can't leave Portillo's out of a conversation about cheese fries, Javi. So they're going to have to be on the menu as well.
Are they fast food?
I think they are. I mean, they have a drive-through, so
I might have to change to Portillo's then,
okay, fair enough.
I'll keep Portillo's. All right, so social media. Do you do social media?
I do.
Like normally people, normal people that come to this podcast, they want people following them. I don't know if you.
Should I stay incognito? No, I really only do Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. I don't really do the Twitter, but
what's your social media like at?
Oh, you'll have to add that as a link because I
Are they all different? They
are all different, and it's not one of those things that I.
Okay, if people want to follow you, then there will be links.
Yes, definitely
on the website. All right. Well, thank you very much. This has been like the easiest episode I've ever done.
Thank you. I appreciate. Cool. I appreciate.
Any last words for anybody out there that
donate?
Parkinson's. Okay. All right. So again, this has been Priscilla Rios, and this is the Prolific Creator Podcast, and we're signing out. Y'all take care. Bye.
Bye.
I don't know why I wave, but I wave.